YouTube, you're turning.
So it gets cool in here. It was really hot, so the AC has kicked on. So. Good to go, man.
Okay. Welcome, everyone. Thank you all for being here. We'll redo that.
Take two.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for being here for the City of Philomath City Council meeting for October 14th, 2024. Happy Indigenous Peoples Day. We're really happy to have you all here. We're first going to get started with a roll call.
Jessica Andrade.
Present.
Ruth Causey. Here. Diane Crocker. Here. Matt Lehman.
Here.
Christopher McMorrin.
Here.
Teresa Nielsen.
Here.
And Chaz Jones.
Here. And first thing on the agenda is that we have well, before we do that, I'm just going to give a quick run through for the agenda. We're going to have a presentation by Julie Jackson of Republic Services. We'll then go through our proclamation for Indigenous Peoples Day. We'll enter into public comment, go have our consent agenda, and then in new business, we'll discuss the appointment of a city recorder, because our longtime city recorder is retiring, sadly. And then we'll discuss the social service agency funding grants, the utility assistance funding grants, and the transient lodging tax funding grants. We'll then discuss the process for the city manager's annual performance evaluation, an OLCC permit application by Dirt Road Brewery. We'll then discuss a resolution on the adoption of procedures for public meeting grievances, and then we'll go through our staff and committee reports. So with that, we will invite Julie Jackson to come up and offer a presentation on the public services on your annual update.
Good evening. Thank you for letting me be here tonight, and thank you for first on the agenda, I guess. Although I'm always happy to go to proclamations and comments from the public instead of the council. Good thing, because I go to a lot. So anyway, I'm happy to be here tonight to talk to you about the public services work in the community over the last year. I want to really emphasize that I know I've been coming and talking about the Recycling Modernization Act for years, literally, but I really want to emphasize that this is going to be in the next, in July 2025, the Recycling Modernization Act goes into effect. And that means there are going to be significant changes to what we recycle in Oregon. I don't know that it's going to make a huge difference to those people at the curb, but how we do this is really changing significantly. And I think for the good, all for the good. So what the average citizen will see is that there will be some material going out. There is a statewide collection list, so that will be uniform throughout the whole state. What you can recycle in Portland will be available to be recycled in Philomath and John Day and every place else in Oregon. And that was a big part of the reason to get this program started. So I think that's a really positive piece. So as a part of that statewide list, there's going to be information put together by DEQ that we will send to everyone. So there's a consistent message. We're still waiting for that information, and we understand we may not have it until maybe with things starting in a flyer in the mail with calendars and with a little bit of recycling as you usually do at the end of this year, but then about late spring, we'll be sending you some new information on the Recycling Modernization Act, or RMA. You will see some new materials that can go in the commingled cart, so that's a positive. This was primarily aimed at plastic organization kind of bill, so what that means is if a company sells a product in Oregon in a container, they will be responsible for the end of life of that container. And it has something they call eco-modulation, a component of that. And what that means is if it's a very either durable, reusable, recyclable container, those companies aren't gonna have to pay in as much to the producer responsibility organization, which is the PRO. So we've got RMA and we've got PRO. And if it's very difficult to recycle, can't be recycled, then those companies are gonna have to pay more for that product being sold in Oregon. And I think the great thing about that is that it should encourage them to come up with different packaging. And that's really the whole goal. I've been told by DEQ not to talk about the new items yet because statewide list, but we should know by the first of the year for sure about that statewide list. Another piece of it is depots, and there will be more materials collected at depots at no cost to you. So styrofoam is a very difficult product. I suspect that the people who produce styrofoam and sell things in styrofoam are going to pay a lot into the program because it's difficult to recycle. Think of a truck full of styrofoam that has to go all the way to Portland to be recycled as a truck full of air and a little tiny bit of plastic. I always call it the Cheeto of the plastic world because there's really not much to it. So styrofoam will be one of the materials you can take to the depot and can be collected there. Plastic film, plastic bags, stretchy plastic will be able to go to the depot. We think there'll be more and larger pieces of metal that can go to the depot. And then we're not sure yet, but maybe appliances, we're just not sure where those fit in. So look for more materials that you can drop off at a depot. Benton County currently has 3 depots, one at the landfill, one at the Republic Services office back behind our office, and one at the Southtown Co-op. Benton County, there are all kinds of calculations. Benton County probably should have 4 depots because of the population and the size of the county, according to the RMA rules. And according to the Circular Action Alliance, who's the vendor chosen by DEQ to operate the RMA. So now we have the RMA and the PROs and the CAA. And then we have something called the ORSOC, which is another group that's sending out surveys, and we've been working with cities on those surveys. But you should be able to drop more off at depots. We are actively looking, helping DEQ try to locate another depot within Benton County, and as you might guess, Philomath is sort of the obvious place for that to go with the population that you have here. So if you have thoughts about that, it's my understanding that there are some funds available through CAA to retrofit sites or to make that work inside a depot. It's a hard thing to cite because people are concerned about a mess and glass and lots of things. But I think Benton County would really like to cite one in Philomath. We think it makes sense to, if that makes sense to you, put your thinking caps on and let us know what ideas you've got. Bailey Payne is the group of Benton County. So lots of good things with RMA. I put that we're sponsors of the Benton to Go program. If you know that program, durable to go containers that can be returned to restaurants. We sponsored that for 2 years. And we have between cash and in-kind donations about $60,000 in the Benton County area in the last year. So we're proud of that. I also put we continue to support fleet electrification. For any of you who will be at the League of Oregon Cities this week, we will be over there with one of our brand new trucks. It's a collaboration, it's called the Volterra. It's a collaboration between McNeilis, who we've worked with for many, many years, and Oshkosh, which might be a surprise to you, and they have collaborated on this truck. It is not only a game changer climate-wise, it's a game changer safety-wise. So we're excited about that, and I would love to let you climb around in that truck and show it to you if you're over there in Bend. And also there's kind of a summary of information about the Recycling Modernization Act in here, and you can go to the DEP website for more information. So that's always open. And then the last thing I want to talk to you about is the rate adjustment for this year. It is 5.1% for residential service, and I think that's a little higher than the average. We like it to be around 3%. I would say that the increased cost is due primarily to increased costs at Coffin Butte landfill or disposal. For a number of years, and when we have to move into the quarry, it's difficult. It's moving instead of digging out dirt, it's rock. It's difficult and it's expensive to do. And because, as you are, I think probably aware, we applied for an expansion. We've been working with Benton County to sort of gain consensus. We pulled that application back out. We'll be coming in with another one very soon. And that time frame made us have to move into the corner. So lots of things happening. Some I can talk about, some I can't talk about because we're about to file a public document. So, questions?
Thank you so much. Any questions, Ms. Jackson? Andrade?
This doesn't have to do with what you just talked about, but I'll just note that the last time you were here, I'd asked about the paper towels and napkins and wow, I can't think of nouns. We just discussed.
Like compostable.
Thank you, compostables, and trying to figure out like why you don't take them anymore because they are compostable, and you had said it had to do with like equipment and stuff like that. But I'll just note that on the website it still says that you take them in the compostables. So
Well, it shouldn't say that.
so you might want to update that.
This is good timing because I was just on a call today from one of my colleagues who came back from the National Composting Conference in Denver about a month ago. And this is a real topic of discussion across the country. I think Oregon has quit taking that stuff into compost probably before most, but most other states are going the same direction again. And it's not really so much equipment as it is, restroom waste is where we get the questions a lot about restroom waste because people, organizations want to compost that material. The problem with that is that there can be all kinds of pathogens and bacteria and people who have to pick out contamination out of the compost, and it just is not a good situation. The compostable materials are kind of a different subject, and I think in the industry there's a real feeling that there's a lot of greenwashing with compostable materials, that they don't compost. They may compost in a lab, but they don't compost at our facility quickly enough to get them out of the material. They're really difficult to tell if they are compostable, if they aren't compostable. There's one form of material called oxydegradable, and it's actually just plastic that has a component that breaks it into tiny pieces. We think microplastics are a bad idea. There are bags, many of the bags can have that component to them. So there's just a lot of unknown out there, and I think what the message from this workshop that she went to, or this conference, was that what we really want to do is create a soil amendment that you would want to put on your soil, and that you would want to eat vegetables coming out of that soil. And the way to do that is to stick with pretty much purely organic material. So it's a tough message. I agree. And it's really the reason why we put $10,000 into the Benton To Go program, because we think durables are a much better solution than compostable to-go containers. So.
Nelson?
Yeah, how does the Oregon Recycling Modernization Act compare with other states, and like specifically in the Pacific Northwest?
It's the third EPR, Extended Producer Responsibility Program, in the nation. So it's pretty new and it's pretty on the forefront. As you might guess, a lot of producers have fought this in other states, but Oregon, it's been years, and Oregon has stuck to their guns and really pushed this program through, and producers now understand in Oregon they're going to participate in that or not sell that product in Oregon. So I'd say it's on the forefront, which Oregon has kind of taken pride in doing, all with the bottle bill and some other things.
additional questions? Councilor Moore?
I had one, and
Sure.
this is more just clarification. Just on here, it talks about the Coffin Butte and County disposal rate, but Republic sets that rate, right? That the county doesn't actually have anything to do with that. Is that
No,
correct?
but Benton County gets a preferential rate
Okay.
for being the host county.
Gotcha,
That's a lower
okay.
rate than other counties
Okay.
get. And that is a part of the, that's a part of the Benton County host agreement.
Right. Okay. And then, and I understand you can't talk about it, but just with the landfill, I guess, what is Republic's plan if the county doesn't approve the application?
Well, it's a time-consuming process. I can tell you, we'll go to the planning, we'll submit the application, when the staff deems it complete, we'll go to the planning commission. The planning commission will either approve it or deny it. At that point, certain that whichever side is denied will go to the commissioners to appeal. The commissioners would then make a decision. At that point, whichever side is approved or denied, or is denied, will go to LUBA. It's almost certain. And LUBA will either make a decision to back to the county. There's one more avenue, but I don't think anybody sees it happen in the state. So we have, I don't know how long that's gonna be, between 6 months and a year from now when we get to that point. And at that point, I mean, certainly we're talking about what to do, but the thing that I can tell you is, Benton County does not have a transfer station. So at some point, the waste, if it doesn't stay here, it has to be loaded into larger trucks and sent probably 200 miles one way. And really one of the questions for us is how that can be a good idea. So, if not, then we will do everything we can to extend the life by compaction and all of the things that we do at Coffin Butte Landfill. There's a point where Coffin Butte Landfill will close. I mean, I think we have to face that that's a reality at any rate. So we need to be thinking about these things. Benton County is getting ready to start a process they're calling Sustainable Materials Management Plan. And that's going to begin very soon. And I think a lot of regional partners are coming together in that plan to talk just very exactly about the question you asked. So I don't have all the answers.
Yeah.
But that's what I can tell you.
And can you just remind of how many counties funnel into
Oh,
Coffin?
I can't. So there is Benton, Lynn, Lincoln, Polk, and Marion. Those are the predominant counties. Those are the counties that surround Benton County. And there's been a lot of misinformation out there. About 85% of the waste comes from those counties, those regional counties surrounding. There's been a lot of talk about waste from Washington, let's say. I can tell you the only waste that comes from Washington would be dirt. We are a dirt poor landfill. And we will take dirt wherever we can get it because one of our requirements is to place 6 inches of soil over the waste every night or tarp or something else, but we like dirt. And if there's contaminated soil is okay to go on a landfill, and unless it's contaminated with hazardous material, which can't. But if we get a soil job, we'll take that any day of the week. And I think we did in last year, for example, have soil coming from Washington State. But the predominant amount of waste comes from about 85% from those regional counties.
And last question, sorry, was just that Benton County disposal rate increase of 15.38, is that the same increase percentage the non-Benton County rate is?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Everybody gets the same. It's just preferential.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
For Benton County. Yeah.
I have one more question from Councilor Nielsen.
And considering another 5% increase, is Republic doing anything for those that have low income or are struggling with utility payments in this economy of?
We've we have added some of those programs. I guess I'll throw that back at you and ask what the city does, because we do not have the ability to vet customers, and we don't think it's our job to make those decisions. So we kind of follow the city's on that. If you want us to look at that, and I don't know if the city has a program or not.
In the past, we've just required that we have that small bin, kind of off bin filled
Yeah.
in.
Yeah.
To make sure that we had kind of a smaller option for those households.
And then the other thing that is unique to Philomath is that in 2013, when we started adjusting rates like this, the smallest bin, that part did not get increased for 10 years. So that rate stayed the same for 10 years. And that was kind of our way to keep that smallest bin cost down for those folks who could recycle.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate you being here.
Yeah, absolutely. And as always, if you have other questions about anything, we can certainly try to answer landfill questions for anybody. And my email's on.
And Julie, you'll get the official email invitation, but since you're here personally, we want to make sure that we invite you and invite Republic Services to the ribbon cutting ceremony at the Paul J. Cochran Veterans Memorial Park. Republic Services was instrumental donating trucks and labor and drivers and all of that on a lot of that demo job that happened years ago. All the same, we want to make sure that you're invited and see the finished product.
You know, we like giving money, but we really it's a really good challenge for us and a good partnership. And if you have others, we're always open that we can get involved with. But you know,
It's a big project.
Again, another reason just to be thinking about the application. You have an idea, or maybe a business owner who's willing to put some extra space and what's happening. Put one here, if we could, and then in conjunction with that.
So I was gonna say, on that note, like, why would we want one here? What are the benefits, and like, what kind of things are you looking for in a site like that?
You know, I can't tell you exactly the size. I think the benefits are that people, for big materials, so we had to buy a TV. And that box is too big and too thick for me to cut up and put in a recycle cart. So I take it to the depot. And we hear from people all the time, well, I don't want to have to drive all the way to Corvallis to put that in a depot. So those materials like motor oil and batteries and compact fluorescent bulbs and all those extra things that you can recycle at the depot but that you can't put in the cart are really inconvenient to drop off if they're closer. And what we know is people drop off more if it's closer, you know, because I put it in the back of my car and wait till I go to work, but for most people, you have to think about it. That's bag rattling around in your car and all those things. So I think there are some real benefits. And I think again, we have to work out that issue with making sure that there's no vandalism, that it's locked up at night, and that it's.
And so then for like the landowners, because you had said if you know someone, like what is the benefit for them?
So from what I understand, talking to Bailey Payne today, there is the potential to actually purchase them, and whether the county would own that, whether the city would own that, but through the RMA process, there are funds to increase infrastructure. So there could be funds to purchase land, rent land, lease land, and also then there's some requirements for covered materials. And so there's, I think, some funding that could be available for building that structure, blocked fencing, those kinds of things. But if somebody's looking to sell maybe a small piece of land that's not super useful, that might be a good alternative.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Hey,
Thank you.
appreciate you being here. Marion, Clark, I was wondering if you wanted to possibly make a public comment in 5 minutes. You can put your name on a little sheet up there. Sign in. Just wanted to invite you to do so. The next on the agenda is Resolution 2919, Proclamation for Indigenous Peoples Day. And Councilor McMorrin, the chairperson for our Inclusivity Committee, has volunteered to read that proclamation.
Sure thing. City of Philomath Resolution 2419, a resolution proclaiming the 2024 Indigenous Peoples Day. Whereas Oregon and the city of Philomath were founded upon land inhabited and stewarded by many bands of Indigenous people since time immemorial. And whereas Philomath was founded upon the lands and waters of the Marys River Band of the Kalapuya, the descendants of which include the citizens of the Confederated Tribes of the Siletz Indians and the Confederated Tribes of the Grand Ronde. And whereas the city wishes to recognize the city's past, ongoing, and future partnerships with the Confederated Tribes of the Siletz Indians and the Confederated Tribes of the Grand Ronde Community of Oregon. And whereas our school district honors these partnerships and our shared history by incorporating tribal history and culture into our school's educational programs in partnership with the Confederated Tribes of the Siletz Indians. And whereas, in recognition of our interests for continuing to grow partnerships between the city and the Confederated Tribes of the Siletz Indians and the Confederated Tribes of the Grand Ronde, both tribes gifted official tribal flags to the city of Philomath. And whereas Indigenous Peoples Day was first proposed in 1977 by a delegation of Native nations to the United Nations, sponsored International Conference on Discrimination Against Indigenous Populations in the Americas, and whereas this city supports the principles contained in the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples, endorsed by the United States on December 16, 2010, and whereas the Declaration recognizes the right of Indigenous peoples, quote, to the dignity and diversity of their cultures, traditions, histories, and aspirations, which shall be appropriately reflected in education and public information, end quote, and promotes efforts to combat prejudice, eliminate discrimination, and, quote, to promote tolerance, understanding, and good relations among Indigenous peoples and all other segment of society, end quote. And, therefore, be it resolved, the City Council and the Mayor of the City of Philomath proclaim Monday, October 9th, as Indigenous Peoples Day in the city of Philomath.
Let's change it to the 14th.
Yes, that would be good. Monday, October 14th, as Indigenous Peoples Day in the city of Philomath. And be it further resolved that the City Council encourages all residents to learn more about the history of the tribes and Indigenous peoples that traditionally cared for these lands.
Thank you so much. We appreciate that. And one way we can learn more is by reading Dr. Lewis's book.
Yes.
Presenting here earlier today at 5:30, titled "The Tribal History of the Willamette Valley." One thing I learned this weekend when I read it, there were 39 tribes brought into the Grand Ronde Reservation. Pretty interesting.
Call for a motion to approve the resolution.
Do I have a motion to approve this resolution as presented?
I move that we approve it with the correction of the date to October 14th.
We have a motion made by Councilor McMorrin, seconded by Councilor Andrade. Any further discussion? All in favor, please raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. So next on the agenda is public comment. It looked like Mary Clark was interested in offering public comment. So I'm gonna, after I read this little thing before every public comment, you'll have 3 minutes, just so you know. But I'm gonna read this before you get to speak. It's like in the middle. It's like in the middle, and I just wanted to make sure it was. This time is intended for individuals to speak and to council to listen. Members of the council will not discuss topics or make decisions during this time, but may take comments or requests under advisement, assign topics to a future council or standing committee agenda, or request staff to take action. Comments about a topic scheduled for a public hearing should be given during the public hearing, not during the and comments. Testimony time is limited to 3 minutes per speaker. A 30-second warning will be provided. Speakers should provide their name and city of residence. Providing the council with a written copy of your comments is always greatly appreciated. Those who attend public meetings are required to adhere to the council's rules and proceedings and observe the same standards of decorum as members of the council. Further, at the discretion of the presiding officer, members of the public who fail to observe these rules and procedures will be asked to discontinue speaking and will not be allowed to speak for the remainder of the meeting. With that, we invite you.
That warm welcome.
Very little laced. Got it. Thank you, God. Appreciate it. My name is Marion Clark. I'm the owner of the Emerald City Jaguars, who will now be renaming themselves the Willamette Valley Jaguars. We're a pro basketball team in one of the second biggest leagues. That's not the NBA. And we're going to be moving down here to move our team down here to the Valley. We are currently in discussions with Philomath High School to possibly play there. And the goal behind our organization is to be a community asset for all. Most of our missions revolve around youth athletics, but also mentorship, leadership, and helping kids reach their full potential. That's not including basketball. So with that, we're very excited to come down here. Like, I've been a part of the Philomath community a little bit, in and out a couple of different times. I know a lot of people here. I play basketball here on the weekends on Sunday. Me and my wife would live here if that community had finished on time before COVID hit. We were in the second phase. We had our house all planned out. We were ready. So, but I'm really excited to come down here and start this new chapter. We have a lot of internship programs we're excited to use and bring. And one of my personal goals for the city of Philomath and the cities of the Willamette Valley in general is to build more facilities to give kids more access. I'm a firm believer that every city should have their own community center to where they can run and expand on programs and, give youth the chance to develop in things of that nature. So I know for a fact that's something I'm really passionate about. And then also, housing. I made my money in housing, so housing is really important to me. I grew up in a lower middle class family in Compton, California, so that was like a big thing. We come from a big family, so like housing is very important to me and making sure people have homes. But above all else, I'm really happy to be here, and I hope to see you guys at some games. One of the big things is all kids 12 and under get into our games free. So we're all about access and affordability. And if you guys have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. I'd love to work with you guys on different projects and volunteer and things of that nature.
This may be a naive question, but I assume it's a men's team. And do you have any plans to start a women's team, or do you use women in some of your internship positions?
Assisting, and now she is the head. I'm really proud of our internship program. In the first year of our program, we've gotten one kid who's our head of photography, who was able to get an internship with the Blazers this last summer, and then she was able to get that job coaching at Churchill. So, I'm really excited to expand on that.
Well, thank you. And
Thank you.
it is men, right?
Yes, it is a men's team. Eventually, the league does have plans to do a women's league. I think that's about 2 years off. But that is in the plans at some point.
And how many teams are there in the league?
50 across the states.
Wow, that's cool.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks.
Does anybody else sign up for public comment? Anybody wanting to sign up for public comment? Going once? Going twice, okay. Next on the agenda is our consent agenda. I have a motion to approve. Counselor Causey?
So moved.
We have a motion made by Counselor Causey, seconded by Counselor Lehman. Any further discussion? All in favor, please raise your hand, say aye. Aye, motion carries unanimously. Next on the agenda is our new business and the city recorder appointment. Chris?
Chelsea's not here this evening. She's away at a conference, statewide committee that she's on, so we'll excuse her from being here. She prepared this memo, so if I had a chance to go through it. Pretty extensive process that we followed. The city council got some buy-in to what the process was going to be after it went to the finance admin committee, and we essentially followed the process as was scripted. So grateful to council members that were able to be on that interview panel here a couple weeks ago. Had 3 candidates that was narrowed down to that we got to interview, and walked out of those interviews feeling confident and excited to be able to give an offer. We have extended that offer. It's been accepted. Did the background check and everything checked out great. It was all good glowing reviews we were hoping for. Being a little bit sensitive with the name just because the individual hasn't provided notice yet. to their employer. They were a little leery to do that without getting a full city council approval. So we have a chicken egg. You don't get to know who it is, but you get to vote for them. But again, hopefully the way this was written and the process we followed, and hopefully with some supporting comments from the three that were on the interview panel, there could be some comfort in moving forward with my recommendation for the appointment of the new city recorder. I can tell you first name is Crystal, but I'd feel more comfortable not telling you more information than that, unless you really try to drag it out of me. So, but with the city council's approval tonight, individual plans to give notice tomorrow. And I don't want to say too much. There's some extenuating circumstances on some of the hesitancy to provide that in a public forum. And hopefully as a potential employer, you can recognize some of the concern there with not providing notice to your employer until you've got some certainty that there's a future job waiting for you. So that's kind of where comfort wise, there's a recommended motion there if the council feels comfortable moving forward. If approved, again, they'll give 2 weeks notice, expect them to be started, have some overlap with Ruth before Ruth retires officially again. So yeah, timing wise, couldn't be more happy with the way things have laid out and where we're at. Happy to answer any questions. If not, there's a recommended motion there on the end of the memo.
Councilor Causey.
May I ask, which counselors were on the interview?
Three of us. Councilor Andrade, Councilor Elaine, and myself.
Thank you.
Did that change any opinions?
You have to answer that.
I move that the council approve this candidate for next city recorder.
Thank you. We have a motion made by Councilor Causey, seconded by Councilor Crocker. Any further discussion, comments, questions? Councilor McMorrin.
I get where we're coming from. However, I don't really know how to vote on this because I have no idea what I'm voting on. I guess, is there anything else maybe the counselors who are involved could share about, even if it's like what you liked about this candidate or what? I mean, Ruth, how long have you been at the city?
25 years.
Like, that's not a thing I just want to like, oh yeah, sure. Like, this next person might be here for 25 years too. So I get the desire, but I'm not super comfortable voting on a nameless figure. I mean, I guess we have a first name, but yeah.
I was just gonna say, if I weren't on the panel, I would feel the
Sure.
exact same way.
Sure.
So totally get that. But personally, one of the things that I thought, just gonna describe, I hope that's okay, was just the fact that they seem to be very detail oriented, and I think one of the things that really stood out to me was Chris had stated his needs for staff wise, and how this person seemed to meet the needs that he had for
Keeping things organized,
Yes.
keeping things moving, planning ahead, very, as she said, detail oriented, and being able to help manage the affairs of not only 7 city council members and planning commissioners and a city manager. So that was one of the attributes I liked best, was very organized and very able to keep everything on track and moving and know where everything is. So that was a big plus.
and lots of ideas and
Councilor Lehman, did you want to add anything?
I covered it pretty well.
I will state that, we are not going to replace somebody who's been here
Yes.
over for a really long time with anybody who's new, right? And so we cannot expect that the person who's coming in is going to replace Reed, but they can do the job as described by Chris. That seems like that seems to be the case, but they're not going to replace Ruth. How can we possibly replace Ruth?
I do want to add one thing.
Councilor Lehman?
She seemed to be very tech savvy. in particular, and expressed a lot of experience with like database management, records management, those types of things that that we touch every day. So that was encouraging to me.
Councilor Conzi?
Was it a difficult decision, or did you feel like this was really the clear winner?
It depended for each person. I thought I wasn't drunk, but.
They all had their strengths. Like, yeah. You know how I said they're gonna do the job. As you said, he's very tech oriented, or very detail oriented, and database. They were all very different.
Oh, I see.
Longevity, we don't ask a question in the interview like, how long are you gonna stay?
No, I'm not asking you to, I just,
But one of the things that I did like about, this applicant was that it doesn't feel like this was like a stepping stone to bigger and better things. At least in their responses, seemed very, content to be here and learn and grow in the position and learn more about. They've not been a city recorder in the past. We didn't have any applicants so none of the applicants were at Ruth Post, right? So, but this individual specifically, I think, showed of everybody kind of the most excitement and hunger to learn about the job and to grow into the job, and is somebody that I envision could be here for a long time. And again, is a long time 3 years, is a long time 5 years. I hope it's longer than that. You know, I fully engage with the attitude that you try to hire to retire. I would love to hire somebody today that's going to stay with us for 25 years before they retire. If that's this is an individual, then really, really good work out of them while they're here. They're good work attitude, good attitude overall. And one of the things I look for from the staff level is a good kind of fit with the rest of the organization and kind of similar work attitude, community service. Although, you know, we get a paycheck, but kind of the pride in the community aspect, and she touched on that a few times in her answers as well. So, don't know if that helps any. It's hard without going through an interview to know yourself, but that was the setup that we kind of put out there rather than having full council.
Councilor Kazi?
Did each of the candidates interview with multiple staff members as well?
The first round of interviews was Chelsea, myself, and Julie Nunez, one of our staff here at City Hall. So that was the first round of interviews, and the second was Chelsea, myself, and the 3 council members.
I see. Okay, thank you.
Councilor Morris?
I guess maybe I would like us to come up with like a way to go about this moving forward, just because I think the city recorder, it sounds like this candidate is qualified and will do a good job. It just, there are, other officers who would have to be confirmed by the city. Like if we have to replace the public works director, we still have to, but it says department heads in the city charter, right?
Not listed in the charter.
But I thought it just said heads, like,
Public Works Director.
but it says the council shall not appoint or dismiss a department head without the manager's recommendation. And the manager may only appoint or dismiss a department head with the approval of a majority of the incumbent members of the council. So would that not?
You're reading it correct. Yeah.
Okay. So I guess I just have, like, it was great that we got to talk to Dave Gursky before and obviously that's different because he didn't have to give notice to his employer, but I guess it's just that's lucky that we had that. But if Kevin retires and we got to replace Kevin, like, is this going to be the default moving forward that we just kind of like thumbs up whatever the committee recommends? I guess.
The concept of this, that was the idea of pitching it ahead of time, was to say, this is the process we're gonna follow. And we took buy-in from everybody and everybody agreed that's what we're gonna follow. So I'm a little concerned that you're uncomfortable with the process now, but this was the process we laid out.
I didn't remember this detail of that process. I remember, I'm fine with the committee interviewing them and everything. I don't think it said in that process that the council wouldn't have the name or any information about
Any of the CVs.
Yeah, like I interview a lot of people for my job, and I have a resume and I have, their job history.
So if we get to another department head, we can go through the process and kind of see that. We didn't foresee the fact that this individual wouldn't want to give notice to the employer, have their employer even know until they had confirmation. So we can definitely look at that next time we have this situation come up. I get where you're coming from, and obviously we wrote the memo the way it was just because it's the
Right,
role.
right.
So I totally get where you're coming from. Yeah, I get it.
Counselor Cocker?
Could we just meet it, not this time, but next time, in executive meeting before?
It's not one of the allowances under executive session. It's not.
Shame.
To our state legislators. We're a public body, so we do it in public.
Am I allowed to abstain?
Yep.
Okay.
So we have a recommended motion.
Already been, hasn't it?
Yeah.
We're just
Oh,
voting.
yeah, you're right. So seeing no further comment, questions, all in favor, please raise your hand, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, please raise your hand, say nay. Any abstentions? Okay, so motion carries 6-0. Thank you all for that. Appreciate it. And look forward to seeing, new faces out. Just one for now. But at the, staff report, we have a bunch of ones around. So next on the agenda, we're going to discuss the social service agency funding grants. And I can go ahead and briefly discuss this. So this came before the finance. Oh, I'm sorry.
I need to recuse myself from this discussion and vote because I'm not
Okay, thank you.
doing anything.
Okay, we'll come and find you.
Drill mix in the kitchen.
Councilor Moore.
I am the board treasurer of Strengthening Rural Families. So I don't think that's a legal conflict of interest. I just want to disclose it.
Okay, thank you. You said strengthening rural families?
Yeah.
Okay.
I might ask if there's any other
Potential conflicts of interest, actual conflicts of interest, or perceptions of bias or conflicts of interest? Maybe not, okay. So the Finance and Admin Committee reviewed the various opportunities, including social service, utility assistance, and transient lodging tax and funding opportunities. Regarding social service grants, we received a fair number of proposed funding requests, which are identified in the table on the back half of the page. You'll see that we had a range of funding requests from $1,500 up to $15,000. And we made some funding recommendations based upon the fact that we had a handful that were 5,000 or less. And we ended up, the recommendation was anyone who asked for less than $5,000 or up to $5,000, that we offer the amount that they asked for. And then those that requested an amount greater than $5,000, we divided up the remaining funds and recommended we distribute them equally amongst the remaining agencies. That's basically the process we went through. We think that all of the applicants, all the applying agencies were well deserving, that they could utilize the funds in a good way, and it seemed like a good use of the city funds to allocate the money between these organizations the way we recommended. Anything to add, Chris?
Nope. Other than I'll just express appreciation for Mike and Ruth and everybody for kind of helping facilitate, get all the information in, and the committee for going through all of that paperwork and reviewing. So each of those applications were provided to the committee just to add, and each of the committee members were able to go through each of those applications individually before coming to conversation during the meeting. So.
Yep, that's right. Any questions, comments, concerns, Councilor McMorrin?
For the groups that are getting less than they requested, I guess in their applications, did it feel like that money would still help them achieve what, because I know like sometimes maybe they wanna buy a $15,000 item, and if we give them $6,000, that's not really gonna help them. I mean, it would help, but it's not, so I guess I was just hoping maybe you could elaborate on that a little bit.
Yeah, does anybody want to provide more context, or I can? I would suggest that, yes, they all could use additional funding.
Yeah, I'm not, yeah. Just wouldn't
and-
mess up any of what they kind of applied for, or.
I didn't get the sense for that.
Okay.
And, I'm hesitant that if somebody asks for a lot more money, that they are necessarily more deserving than others that didn't have the confidence or the interest in asking for more. Maybe they felt more self-conscious about it. And I feel like the potential for, hey, just rewarding those that ask for lots of money because they ask for lots of money is not necessarily the best or most fair thing to do. So I personally really like the way that we recommended that the funds be allocated. But
Yeah, just having read through those applications, I don't know if Councilor Andrade is gonna say this, but no projects jump out to mind if you're thinking like a, $5,000 gizmo they need to buy, and if they only get 4,000, they can't buy it. Nothing like that comes to mind, but without going back for you, and I don't want to quote me, but I don't remember any specific. And I said, we've had specific projects in the past that they said we need to build a cover in for their fridge or the freezer unit. I don't recall any of that this year. So here's the number of people that we serve, here's the funding that we need to do it, more general operations type things.
thank you, Councilor Andrade.
Agreed. My main thing that was probably just, nitpicky about it, but with PCS, they didn't actually request any funds. They didn't submit an application because they had asked for the help with the parking lot situation, with the water treatment plant. And so I was against giving them more money than what they had asked for, especially considering looking at the running total of last year versus this year. Like when you look at how much we gave to each of the different agencies last year, plus what our funding recommendation is here in this chart, they get.
Can you just explain a little bit, because I did not explain why that says 7,494 versus 6,004. Could you just expand on your comments to include?
Oh, because it wasn't that just because it was the extra. You had said it, when you divided them up, you just added the extra, you included PCS in the splitting.
Yep.
Of extra, something like that. I can't explain it very well, but basically either way, I just didn't think it was a good idea to give them that extra money when they didn't ask for it. And we did give them a lot of money the year before that they didn't use for the thing that they said they were going to use it for. And yes, they still used it for a good thing, for multiple good things. But also 18,494 versus 17,000, it's not that big of a deal between the 2 years. It's just more of a, I would rather use that money to give it to PYAC and Strengthening Rural Families, who have consistently been taught a lot more over the past several years. So that was my issue, but.
Thank you. Councilor Kazi.
I'd like to move that we approve the allocations of social services funding grants as presented.
I will second that.
So we have a motion made by Councilor Kazi and seconded by Councilor Nielsen. Any further discussion, comments, questions? Councilor Andrade.
And just to clarify, they're all very deserving. That's my line.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Seeing no further comments, please raise your hand and say aye. If you have a motion. Aye. Any opposed? Please raise your hand and say nay. Motion carries 5-1. So
With one abstention.
With one abstention, because Councilor Lehman has.
You go get him back now.
Please do. Riveting meeting, eh? Good stuff. Happy you're here. It's different than the NAACP meetings, eh? Okay, so next on the agenda is discussion of the utility assistance funding grants. Do you have any potential conflicts of interest, perceived conflict of interest, actual conflict of interest, or perceived biases? Okay. So next on this, so in this, for this funding ask, we had two very well deserving applicants for our utility assistance funding grant, that is Minor Moses and We Care. And they both provide important assistance, utility assistance for our community members. And they both asked for money, $5,000 and $6,000. And the way that we recommended it be divided, the money that we had available be divided was just simply equally between both of them, recognizing that they both provide valuable services. Again, my take was that I didn't necessarily just simply want to reward someone that asked for more. And it didn't seem like the difference in funding was that significant, so we divided equally. Any comments, questions, suggestions, or motions to approve? Councilor Crocker.
I motion to approve the allocations as presented.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I will second.
So we have a motion to approve by Councilor Crocker, second by Councilor Nielsen. Any further comments, questions, or discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please raise your hand, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimous. Thank you. Starting with all these old agencies are going to be very happy and get emails tomorrow thanking us for doing this work. Next on the council agenda is a discussion of the transient lodging tax grants. And the city has a total ELT tax available of $17,700 this year, which we can provide to worthy organizations. Bye-bye, thanks for being here. Worthy organizations and entities that bring tourism dollars to the city of Florida. So we made a recommendation. We basically had Benton County Historical Society and Philomath Chamber both asked for, $1,500 and $1,200 respectively. And then the Frolic and Rodeo asked $15,000, and those numbers equated to the total that we had available of $17,700. We simply recommended that each be allocated similar to, or they asked for it.
It's, the wrong number was put.
Oh, okay.
It's 400 for the chamber.
It's 1,500, should say 1,200.
Oh, sorry about that.
Funding recommendation.
Math was hard that day, but it's a typo. That's what we recommend. And any questions, comments, concerns, or motions?
I guess I was just hoping for some insight. This feels like a very different methodology than what we've been talking about for the past two, of it shouldn't just be whoever asks for the most money gets the most money. The other ones we kind of divided it equally, whereas this one, we're literally just giving exactly what everyone requested. So I guess I was curious for the discrepancy there.
I think the prior, we would have given everybody the amount of money that they requested if we had it. In this case, the amount of money that's available equals the amount of money that we requested. And so it just made sense. The two that, the Benton County Historical Society and the Philomath Chamber had specific things that they were going to do with the funds. This is the cost of those things. And the Frolic and Rodeo has a lot of need, and this is a portion of those funds to move towards that. Anything better that you could add, or anybody else could add?
No.
Yeah. Councilor Kazi.
I know this is, some funding that is going to be changing pretty significantly. What was the amount we had available last year?
Last year, we didn't know what we were gonna be bringing in with our local TLT funds. We only knew about the 5,000 we were getting from Benton County because we'd been receiving that. So we only allocated for this, the 5,000, and split that in half. So the 2,500 in this year's budget, we had a pretty good idea what we were gonna be receiving based on some projections and some received receipts, and so we budgeted much more, and so that made more available for this grant program.
Councilor Lehman?
I don't like the way this smells. Just gonna say it flat out. So I'm gonna move that we approve allocation of the transient lodging tax funding grant as follows. $4,833.33 for Benton County Historical Society, $4,533.33 for the Philomath Chamber of Commerce, and $8,333.33 for the Frolic and Rodeo.
Okay, we have a motion made. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Councilor Moore seconds. We have a motion made by Councilor Lehman, seconded by Councilor Moore. And
The pattern that was presented earlier of looking at the requests and then taking basically the $5,000 limit and then dividing everything equally after that $5,000 limit. So 1,000, and we had two that requested less than 5,000. So basically starting at 5,000 for the Frolic and Rodeo and the 2,700 for the others, left 10,000 left over, dividing that three ways equally, then led to the totals that were in my motion. That was my thinking behind it.
got it. Any questions, comments? Councilor Andrade?
I mean, I doubt I'll get a second, but I will, I move to amend the motion to, remove, funding for the Frolic and Rodeo Association for now, and hold on to it for, until a time comes when, I guess to pause giving it to them. Sorry, Ruth, do you want me to rephrase that?
Do you want her to restate the motion?
Yes, please.
Okay. I move to pause, move to, remove the funding for the Philomath Frolic and Rodeo Association for now, and to revisit funding them at a later time.
Do we have a second? Okay. None. I saw Councilor Cocker, you had your hand up.
Couple of things I wanted to just point out was, we are not the only funders of any of these that we're giving. We're just a little part of the pie. And I think the Frolic had the fire. They're trying to rebuild and make it a better facility. Their need is greater at this point. That's what I think.
Thank you. Councilor Moore.
Thank you, Councilor Lehman, for doing the math. I feel like that's kind of what I was hoping for, and then you did it, and that was wonderful. I think there's a couple things in my mind for why I'm a fan of that. I think the first is just the consistency. And then I think the second, I do have some concerns about other organizations knowing how much our funds have increased for the TLT since last time. I know sometimes, it's easier for the Frolic and Rodeo to get that information than it might be for other organizations. So I think I just am not comfortable with, as the mayor said previously, giving it to whoever asked for the most. And I just know, for me, I have repeatedly told folks in our community that, the city is really working to help support rebuilding the grandstands after the fire, but I've been clear that we're not putting any of our like city taxpayer funds into that. We've been advocating for help from the state. We've given them a loan that will be repaid. But I want to stick true to that the city itself is not going to be a huge donor to that effort, because we have a lot of other things that, don't have private donors and sponsors and state support. So I think that's my other problem with it. I totally agree that, they have a huge capital expense, but I think the city has done a lot of work to help with that capital expense, going to Salem, getting, applying for state parks grants, applying for loans, and I don't think it's that the city hasn't supported them, but I just want to kind of keep my word as far as what I've been telling residents, that the city isn't directly paying for it. So, yeah.
How many of the TLT funds are coming directly from the city?
I mean, there's no way to know that. Isn't it coming from?
Minus 5,000,
Yeah.
right? 5,000 from the county, the rest of it is all from here.
Yeah.
Right, well, I mean, somewhere here comes from, the TLT is paid for by visitors to Philomath that pay the added fee when they stay at a hotel or an Airbnb.
Yeah.
Money comes to the city in the way of a TLT, so.
Maybe I should rephrase my statement. It's, when I say comes from the city, I mean comes from the city's budget. Because thus far, we have not given any direct cash from the city's budget, regardless of the, who paid that tax. Because grants from the state legislature do not come from the city's budget. Grants from the state parks department do not come from the city's budget. We've extended a loan, but that will return to the city's budget. So we've not expended any of our city budget on it. And God knows I'm supportive of rebuilding those grandstands. I was up there in Salem, but I feel more comfortable kind of keeping that clear line between the two.
I hear you. But we provided TLT funds probably in the past, right?
Yeah, and I think that's where I'm more on board with Councilor, is because an increase from 833 to 15,000, that's pretty much expressly to help with that capital improvement project. So I think I'm comfortable increasing it. The funds increased, and I'm comfortable giving them the support we always give them. But making clear again that we're not expressly doing this to help with that. We're doing it the same way we do for the other organizations.
Anybody that hasn't spoken yet want to add?
Technically, I haven't spoken yet. I just made a motion.
Go ahead.
Thank you. I am more in favor of this motion than the original suggested motion. I really do not feel comfortable giving the Frolic nearly as much money. I think that they provide, they're a great community event, and they bring a lot of tourism and all of this other great stuff. And also, I really did not feel comfortable with their press release in response to comments that had been made in public city meetings, because they essentially stated that they prioritized the First Amendment right to over the essentially the safety and well-being of people from certain demographics, to be able to support the idea that the Nazi flag can be waved, even though it doesn't align with their values. And they essentially equate it to something that is positive and family friendly. And I don't believe that they really connected those things when they wrote the press release, but I am concerned by it and would really like to have a conversation with them to let them understand the harm that has come from this. And I don't think we should be rewarding them with more money until this has been figured out.
Counselor Crocker.
This is for tourism, I understand, and I believe the Frolic brings in more tourism than these other two overall in our community. And I don't understand giving the Historical Society, that was your proposal, is that correct?
That's correct.
And I think that's, we did that once for $287, but that's the only other time that we would have done it. You're talking about, yeah.
Counselor.
Yeah, so not privy to any edit in the information that we've given here. I would suggest that one of these organizations knew how much money was available and that the others did not. And that the others perhaps submitted their request based on their understanding of what the available funds were, not necessarily based on the needs that they may or may not have. Fair, I guess, is the best way to put it. And that's why I made the motion that I did.
That's helpful. Chris?
I was gonna mention what Councilor Crocker said. When the state and the county look at these, well, the state rules on transit lodging tax are clear when they are talking about radius. So what are the events or the accommodations or the amenities that a person from outside of a 50-mile radius coming to the community are going to experience? And those are the things that are targeted when you're looking at these transit lodging tax dollars. And Historical Society versus the Chamber of Commerce versus the Frolic and Rodeo bring into the community from outside of a 50-mile radius, the proportionality of the skewed against the Frolic and Rodeo in that regard as well. And I would also take a little issue with Councilor Lehman's point about the funding and what was from the Chamber and from the Historical Society. They're very specific to what things they like to do with that funding. And this year was no exception. It wasn't, we'd like as much money as possible. We'll take the leftovers. It was, we have a specific map project that we like to do, and this is the cost, and this is the fund we'd like to, in order to do that project. Benton County was similar in that they named a specific project and the funding that would help go towards that project. And the concern I have with the motion on the table is just that these other two agencies are gonna get funding that they're not going to know what to do with. And what we're gonna hear next year is, we didn't have projects to do with the money, and so it didn't get spent. And meanwhile, the Frolic and Rodeo had a major expense that we know was on the table that didn't get the help that it could have had otherwise. So, you know, these are limited to, they're gonna get the check and they're gonna have to spend that money, and then they're gonna have to report back to the city what they did with those funds. I've got concerns about giving them so much more money than what was requested, putting them in a hard situation.
Last question. Did they know, did these entities know that we had an increase in funds available this year?
So I don't talk to everybody. I answered the question from the Frolic on how much funding was left. I did not speak specifically to the Chamber or Historic Society. Neither of them reached out to me and asked about funding. But I can't guarantee they didn't talk to anybody else on the staff or Mike or Chelsea or anybody else, so.
Your hand up.
Yes.
Counselor Ozzie.
I'm in favor of approving the funding allocation as it was originally presented. I think the Frolic and Rodeo clearly has a significant role in our tourism, and it clearly has the need for the funds that were requested. Even with the funding that we received from the state, the construction are significantly over budget, and it has some, we need to raise millions of dollars, we being the Frolic and Rodeo. And I object to the implication that the Frolic had more information than others did or could have had. I believe the Frolic and Rodeo asked for significantly more money than they received. And I would also like to, I don't think this is an appropriate venue or subject for addressing concerns about what was said in a public meeting. You know, there have been objections to and extensive discussions about it, and I don't think it's appropriate to address those at this time. So I will not support the modifications to this allocation, but I would suggest to the Finance and Administration Committee that you establish some rules for allocating these funds, that you adhere to those rules. And, so that you're not just dividing things because they divide evenly and you're not using a different methodology for what. And you allow for amounts requested or amounts needed and extenuating circumstances.
Councilor Nielsen.
As a finance committee member, it was taken into consideration, the various applicants and what they were applying for, what the grants were to be used for. And I felt comfortable at that time advancing this proposal as it is listed initially, with 15,000 going to Frolic and Rodeo. I think taking everything into account, all things into account, our community members, the need for the public use of that facility and other times other than just frolic events. I think there's a lot to be gained by supporting this as it is listed here. I think that I think there's valid reasons why we as a committee put forth this proposal. And so I am going to stand with it. And although I do respect Councillor Lehman's recommendation, I think there are times when we make decisions based on the information that we know and the character and the reputation and the public good that will result from those funds. So that's why I'm staying with what was initially proposed.
Yes.
I'm concerned that any goodwill that's intended at tonight's meeting is not gonna result in goodwill, so I know there's a motion on the table, that's twice this thing's come on. I'd make a recommendation, again, there's a motion on the table, so I'm just gonna recommend maybe a better solution than voting on this motion at this time. There's nothing time sensitive about this, other than the organizations could use the funding sooner than later. If the council's interested, we could table this, we could reach out to these three organizations again, disclose what the full funding amount available is, talk to them again and see if they want to resubmit a different request. And, again, explain, here's what happened, here's where we're at, here's the total funding. And if they want to change their funding amount, they can make that request. I think we'd probably skip the step of going back through the finance admin committee and just bring those updated recommended amounts to the city council at a future meeting. That way it takes away any, consideration or accusation that the Frolic Community had some inside knowledge that the organizations didn't have available to them. I think that would be a good way to be a little more fair and make sure that these other organizations aren't feeling like they were left out or left in the dark.
I'd like that. I was just gonna mention that despite your perceptions that the methodology was different, it was actually exactly the same, right? It was that we weren't necessarily giving more than they were asking for. We're trying to give them what they needed. And if there was a significant ask, that we would then account for that, but we were giving them what they needed. So I feel like our methods were the same, but I personally like this idea. I also, when Councilor Lehman suggested that they may not have the full information that stuck, I was like, that's entirely true, right? And so maybe they would have expressed greater need had they had us, but no. In the past, they've always asked for around $1,000, so maybe that was why they felt comfortable asking for that amount.
I can move to table something. Yeah. Then I move we table the discussion of transient lodging tax funding grants. With the full amount available.
Yeah, if it's okay, I'm gonna work with the mayor to actually have that send out, just so that I can remove myself from that. I serve on the board of directors with the Frolic and Rodeo, and I feel like that's disadvantaging the Frolic in this situation. Sure. So that I can prep something, I'll send it to the mayor, and I'll let the mayor make initial contact if the mayor's willing to do that, just so I can remove myself.
Okay, then my motion will be to table it until the mayor can come back with,
Updated proposals.
yeah.
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion on the table by Councilor McMorrin to table, seconded by Councilor Lehman. You have a comment?
I do have a comment. I agree that we should table it. I did just want to say, from my perspective, before we table it, that since we, the term that you use, need to raise millions of dollars for exactly as much money as we had available to give. If they really need millions of dollars, it seems like they would have asked for more than exactly the amount that we had. That's all I'll say on that.
Councilor Causey?
Just to counter that point, I don't think the Frolic and Rodeo expects the city to fund them fully. And I don't think the Frolic and Rodeo would ask for that kind of money from the city. I just don't think it would be appropriate. I don't think they would do it.
Councilor McMorrin?
My last thing was just, I want to again make clear that I think the city has a role to play in helping rebuild the grandstands, especially since, you know, the city owns Skirvin Park. But from my math, I think the city has already secured like $3 million if you include state funding, parks funding, grant funding, or excuse me, loan funding. So I don't want this to turn into a narrative like, oh, the city doesn't support the Frolic, because I'm pretty sure not the city directly, but city efforts are currently the largest contributor to the grandstand project. So I just want to put that out there.
I can tell you that the Frolic hears that from me all the time.
Okay.
Very clear to the Frolic that we are at the table, we are helping, we are fundraising, we're getting money coming in. So no, I do foresee that this is going to be an issue going forward. I think the Frolic and Rodeo will annually ask for some transit lodging tax money to support the efforts to bring tourism to Philomath.
Yeah.
And I think that's wholly appropriate. And I'll dovetail what I said prior. I do think that my association with the Frolic hurts the Frolic in this situation, if nothing else by perception. And so we'll figure out a more transparent way that we can remove me from any of this, other than more than what we've already done with me not really being involved in this. But we don't want that negative public perception, and I totally get that. It's something that the Frolic and Rodeo and the city and I personally have had to grapple with in my 9 years I've been volunteering at the Frolic and Rodeo and working full-time for the city. I totally get it, but
Okay, so, all in favor of tabling the motion as moved, please raise your hand, say aye. Aye. All opposed, please raise your hand, say nay.
Nay.
Motion to table carries 6-1. Excellent. Thank you. Again, all of the organizations, I know all of the organizations that we will be, are granting funds to are gonna be super appreciative, and we are so appreciative of all that they provide to the city. And I know that all of us, you know, despite the conversations, we all recognize the value that they bring, and we appreciate you all. So thank you. Next on the agenda is the city manager's annual performance evaluation process. Chris, would you like, wait. Anybody, can we take a 5-minute break? Just take a 5-minute break before we continue.
It's just that they're drinking water.
That was a well-deserved break. Thank you all. So next on the agenda is, are we live now? Okay. Next on the agenda is the city manager evaluation process. Need that? Chris, do you wanna?
I will. And again, apologize, Chelsea couldn't be here. She's kind of helping coordinate this, but nobody should be here tonight, so I not put my name on here to explain. So this comes up every year. Their survey has gone out. There were some questions raised during the finance admin committee about some changes that have been requested, and I hadn't captured those changes. So I went back and listened, and the audio from a couple years ago wasn't there, and went back last year, didn't hear anything specific. So I just want to thank Councilor Andrade for taking the time to go back through and do that again. And I sent an email out late this afternoon and kind of explained again. And again, I was late on getting her the information she needed to make the changes. So she really worked under the gun to get this to us as early as today. So thank you for that. So it's on your, I emailed it early today, and it's on the table. These are the changes that Councilor Andrade noted. With some confidence, not to put words in her mouth, that the city council had already kind of looked at and already agreed to in previous versions of this, and we just hadn't captured them. And if there's anything new in here, we can have that discussion tonight as well. So we'll kind of use the handout copy that you got tonight as kind of a starting spot. But the intent is to get my, no, so I think of the memo I said as early as tomorrow. It'll probably be day after tomorrow. I need a little bit more time to work on my self-evaluation. But then once you get that, we just need to get those surveys completed by November the 12th so that we can, excuse me, need it back by October the 15th. Nope, sorry. That's October the 15th. Let me read it. November the 5th, and then we'll go there. I can't read it.
Live.
So, need it back by November the 5th, which gives you just a month. And then we'll have it, the executive session on the 12th to do my eval. So that's kind of the process we're gonna follow. With that, it's probably best to go ahead and look at the eval, and Councilor Andrade, I don't know if you wanna walk everybody through those changes.
Yeah, just to clarify though, the finance and admin committee meeting that we had, not during the interviews for the city reporter, but the one before that, we had been given the evaluation, but it was the wrong evaluation. It was the one without the changes incorporated, but Kelsey had said that, or I'm under the impression she had already changed them. And so we didn't have that available at the interviews. So I was like, I don't feel comfortable approving it until we've seen it and know what we're working with, because I didn't know what changes had been captured. And so looking at it, the only thing that I didn't see changed was in section 4.3. The last sentence, I'm almost positive that Councilor Lehman had come up with the sentence that we had talked about before, but it was revolving around provides council with education on the council manager form of government and the division of roles. And I know my issue was it was just kind of that unilateral teaching to the council, because I mean we've experienced discrepancies of like, you know, it's a two-way street basically, and I think it had something to do. I think what we had agreed on or were leaning towards had something more to do about, you know, collaborating. Works in collaboration with the council to define the council manager form of government and the division of roles. I'm pretty sure it wasn't that specifically, but I think it, I don't know if you happen to remember what it was now.
Unfortunately, no.
Yeah. But the other, to clarify, like overall, the other track changes that I made were just from a cursory look through before finding the one that I'm almost positive had been changed at some point, because we've been having this conversation for several years in several different city meeting spaces.
So does anyone have any issues changing comment that's in the comment bubble? That phrase?
I kind of have a question more than anything. Like, I appreciate the sentiment, I understand the sentiment 100%, but isn't it like a law how the relationship works between the city manager and the city council? I mean, is it up for debate kind of a thing?
There's best practices, there's trainings. I mean, our charter spells out the duties and responsibilities, but within that, there's nuances and there's things working well. And, you know, some of it is policy and administrative, and then some of that administrative authority delegate to me and hire me to run day-to-day operations. And, you know, every charter is a little bit different. Every city is a little different. The League of Oregon Cities got great. You know, the city handbook has got some good information on it. And, you know, when I read this, I just think I'm going to present you with the stuff from the league or from ICMA or whatever on kind of best practices, but I can see how it could be interpreted that I'm going to, I don't know, it's provide counsel with education. But I see that as like provide counsel with educational material on it more than I'm going to teach you anything. I'm just going to present you with material and cover it. And so I can read it both ways. I'm comfortable with the language that Councilor Andrade proposed as well.
Great.
I don't remember what I was gonna say.
We need a motion for that, or
Can we just approve with a specific amendment? If you can do it all in one if you want.
Oh, I guess, sorry, real quick, the other thing is just that, like, I think we can all agree that it can be pretty redundant and like, it's much better than what we've had before I came onto the council. Like, I saw that evaluation and it was intense. But I do think there's still room for improvement. Like, if I actually sat down with this, there's like, I mean, some of the changes that I made specifically were because it was like, well, that's in two places. And yeah, anyway, just something that the Finance and Admin Committee can consider looking at longer term, perhaps next year.
Councilor McMorrin.
this might be a clarifying question. I just remember, I thought last time we went through this, I had expressed an interest in doing like a 360 evaluation and making sure we were hearing from department heads and that are supervised by the city manager. And I thought what I was told at that point was like, oh no, we do that every other year. So I thought I was expecting that in this evaluation, because I mean, I can go back and check what exactly we said, but I thought what we had talked about last time was like, oh, on the, on the odd numbered years or whatever, we just do the council evaluates as kind of a check-in, and then on the even numbered years, we do a more, like a fuller evaluation. So I guess I was just kind of expecting that with this, and I was kind of surprised not to see that included. Because I mean, I think it's important to know what we all think of Chris, but I think we all know what we think of Chris. And given that his job is supervising and administering the city, I almost think it's more important to know how those people think he's doing, because I don't know. I only know how we think he's doing. And I know, like, when I was on the school board, not to put anyone on the spot, but when we evaluated superintendent, I don't know if it was OSBA or someone helped us with a full, like, they even talked to parents and they talked to teachers and they talked to, administrators, which I'm not saying we need to do that all the time, but it was helpful as a school board member. We all know how we feel about working with the superintendent, but how do the parents feel about the superintendent? How do the teachers feel about the superintendent? Because then we could incorporate that into our feedback. So I guess that, I don't know if we need to go quite that far, but just a little more than just us, I think would be helpful.
Yeah, and I appreciate Councilor. I can go back and look. I remember the conversation. I don't remember as specific as every other year or anything like that, odd years or even years. But I also remember counter arguments to, what is the value of asking employees about their boss? We did do a 360 before. We had very little employees do it. They didn't opt into it. They didn't want to put their name on it. So there's other considerations there. So I remember the conversation. I don't remember a decision that we were going to do it, but I can go back and double check that. But so that's on me for not remembering. Remember a clear consensus that we were going to do that in the future.
I have a question. I guess I'll follow myself. When did we do that? How long ago is that?
I've been 4 years years ago, maybe 5 years ago.
I don't remember us saying that we would do it every other year. I think that kind of feels like it would be excessive, but I kind of remember us saying that we would do it. I kind of remember thinking that there was a time where we
term or something, which would be every other year, but, cause I mean, if it was 4 years ago, then if I'm not gonna be on the council next year, that means I never got the opportunity to do that. You know, in 4 years, there could be a completely different group of people in here, and not anymore, but.
I mean, for this year, again, I'll own this, Councilor McMorrin. I mean, for this year, I think the timing of it might make it tough without bumping everything back into the holidays a little bit and give it time to do that. So, I mean, we can do it, just recognize we'll have to move these timeframes back a little bit just to prepare that and get it out with the information back in some way that's presentable. Or the other is if the council wants the other direction, I'm happy to put something in motion in this meeting and capture it, and then we'll make sure that it gets done. So like, again, if I mistakenly didn't do that this year, that's on me. I just didn't recall that being the direction I was doing.
I guess.
Good to have I think we should have a policy rather than, just whenever we get around to whatever we think of it. I think I like the idea of having it. I think I agree a little bit that every other year is a little bit much for the department has to be evaluating every other year. But I do think that it's nice to have their input. I definitely would appreciate hearing from them, and as far as his leadership in and role as every other year is a little bit much evaluation wise, but I'm maybe every fourth year, I don't know. I just think every other year is a bit much. That evaluation piece for those individuals are going to be doing that. Yes.
Anonymously, or do they actually have to put their name on?
It was anonymous last time as well, and they still were, you know, we're a small staff. It's.
I did that right.
Except for that one time that city manager.
What are the rules around, like, what if those were their comments were only visible to the mayor and the council, and then we, like, summarized staff comment?
Yeah, I mean, there's different models out there. Again, I don't know that's something I could pull together like right now.
Sure.
So I'm just concerned about the timing of push on it, but it's, in my contract, it's very clear I'll have an annual evaluation by the city council. We go through the finance admin committee and talk about what that process is gonna be. I haven't been brought up a month ago. We could have had a little bit more time, but I'm just concerned about the timing of it at this point and having something done. Do it. I don't mind hearing from the employees. I mean, I think you all interact with the department heads pretty often. I think you all have a pretty good idea about it often and loud usually. So, I mean, I have no reservations on doing more of a 360 view, but my concerning for this year is just the timing of it. I'll these dates out a little bit if that's what the council wants to do this year.
Councilor Crosby?
The staff evaluated you, can they use this
Name form?
tool, or did they use something different?
It was much simpler and more directly aligned with that kind of employer, ambitious and visionary.
Wouldn't be able to
I don't know.
evaluate when you interact with the city council, right?
We've heard the quotes every year that even for city council members, it's hard on some issue. Like, I'm not sure what Chris does in this area. I don't know if really experience there. The 360s aren't a new program, so we could find a template and customize it. And be some employees would hopefully, we'd probably start with what we did 4 years ago and try to, make it a little more user friendly. You can't really make it mandatory without asking who it is, and you can't really keep it unanimous if you're asking people who it is. But I mean, there's ways around that too.
Yeah. Councilor Nielsen, Councilor Andrade.
As a writer, I take a little bit exception to paraphrasing someone else's words or interpreting someone's words, because as we read something based on their life experience, based on their experience with the individual that is being discussed. So I worry a little bit about us taking as far as, I'm going to interpret this and then paraphrase it for the council to hear. This person is trying to say in a way. So I think having their direct quotation I'd be comfortable with that, but me taking and paraphrasing or interpreting my own point of view into what our manager did that, I'm not comfortable with that, because I think that individual relationship or ideas or opinions or experiences promotes a sense of bias or maybe could not be totally the words of one individual or another. So I think quotations is fine. We want to take quotations from an evaluation, but I'm not really comfortable with paraphrasing or in regards to that this employee was upset with.
Can I just, do a clarifying thing?
Yeah, and I think that a future finance and admin committee would help develop this process. Tonight.
Yeah. I guess just to clarify what I was saying with that is, I think staff, and then it would be more when we're talking with the city manager, we wouldn't try to paraphrase. We'd be like, there were several staff members who said that had trouble getting a response from you paraphrasing or anything, but just like, oh, 3 people said, or not, we don't have to say 3, but it repeatedly came up that, they felt like you were good at this or something, that kind of thing. So,
But again, a future conversation.
yeah, I just wanted to clarify what I meant by that, yeah.
It's kind of irrelevant right now.
Appreciate that, so thank you. And then also on that note about the 360, I know we did talk about the potential to have, if not the general public, then at least committee members who aren't elected. We think that this is a very important thing that we should do, and would like to know if that should be made as a motion, or just something to put into the list of notes that you'll give the finance and admin committee next year for when redoing this.
You certainly can move anything you'd like.
I guess I'm looking to staff for what they accept and need.
Whatever the council, their process, so whatever process you'd like to follow.
Just because there's been times where people have said, I'd like to do this, and you're like, no, we don't need a motion. So,
I get I hear the concerns about time this year, and you have to have this annually. I think it'd be great to maybe at some point talk to committee members or talk to residents.
Mm-hmm.
I hear that though, maybe for this year, that would be tough. I don't think it's necessary. We have 4 or 5 department heads. I don't know who else counted as a department head. I feel like if we give them a thing that takes 10 minutes to fill out, I don't necessarily think it's too much to ask 5 people to take 10 minutes out of their day for this between now and November.
It was limited to department heads. We could have it done. Well, I got a few out, but we could have it to you within a week and a half, probably.
Yeah, I think that's
One
I would be
department head.
comfortable with that compromise for this year. I want to hear from someone who's not us, but I think that is, and technically, those are supposed to be the people that you directly supervise, and then they so I'm comfortable with that. I don't know if the rest of the council's on board with that.
You can find out by making a motion.
Yes.
I move that we add department heads to the 360 or to the city manager's evaluation for 2024.
We have a motion made by Councilor McMorrin and seconded by Councilor Andrade. Any further discussion, comments, questions? Councilor Proctor.
Would it be good to clarify, we want to do this every 4 years or every 3 years, or are we just going to leave it open?
I think the Finance and Administration Committee could recommend a process to us.
My apologies, who was the second to the motion? Thank you. I can't see you. And you have a tendency to just.
I just do that, yeah. I don't vocalize, my bad.
To the next city recorder.
Yell.
Will do, thank you.
Thank you.
Any comments? Any further comments? Questions? Councilor Chris.
I just want to clarify. So I have a public works director, a finance director, I have a police chief who I call the director. So I have 3. Those are the 3 you want to hear from?
And then I guess I was
Hear from Chelsea?
Yeah, the assistant city manager. I guess anyone that you would directly tell what to do, sort of.
From our outgoing, our incoming city recorder?
Not the incoming one. I don't think that would be super helpful. I guess
You
maybe.
don't know, she could be waiting. She's been waiting for years. Get good stuff out of her.
Ruth, would you like to be included? You don't have to answer that. Sure, yeah, let's include Ruth. Or no?
I'm gonna make a comment that
Okay.
it's, in fairness, they should have the option to participate or not. I don't
Sure,
think
sure.
it should be mandated.
But I guess who
I
has
mean,
the
when you
option?
look at me and say, do you want to be included? My answer is, I shouldn't be mandated to do
Sure.
that if I don't care to.
Sure.
Unless it's a law that counts.
Whatever my personal reasons might be. I'm speaking on behalf of all the department heads there, I'm gonna say that.
We might get 1, we might get 4.
I know. Can you, not to put you on the spot,
If anybody wants to do that,
why not?
why not?
Yeah. It's hard for us to know without hearing from city staff. And I feel like that's not an unreasonable expectation of our staff. I know I have to do that, and I've had to do that in previous jobs, fill out evaluations for supervisors. And, if I don't do it, HR is like, hey, hey, you, hey. So I mean, I want to be sensitive to that. I guess I'm just.
I don't think it's good to micromanage folks like that.
It's not
I think
micromanaging.
It is. If you dictate somebody to do something that they're not comfortable with, for whatever reason, because they could think that they're gonna have a bias against them, that's not good.
I guess the few things that the city council has to do, like this, we're not telling them how to paint a line on a sidewalk or how to fill out a spreadsheet. We are saying we are contractually obligated to do this annually. You are the people who are by the city manager. How's he doing? Like, I get that doesn't feel like that feels like Chris asking someone to do something. Like, that's his job and this is our job. But I am sensitive to the city. Honestly, I feel like if there's a bunch of folks who are not comfortable filling it out, that seems like a bigger problem to me. But
It's not the council, I would just say this, outside of the city manager. But if you're giving me the direction that you'd like to see a 360 for my department heads, then I will get you a 360 for my department heads.
Oh, Councilman Trotty.
Out of curiosity, like, do you know if that's done in other cities? Like, hearing from department, very surprised right now. So I'm just because I'm trying to understand. I'm curious to know more about.
It's done, but it's not common. Typically, the city manager evaluation is done by the elected board. There's members of staff, members of the community. Most of the time, it's the purview of the city council, who frankly has the most in my role in capacity as city manager. I interact with some members of the public as a building official and, other or planning official and other things, but in my capacity as city manager, you've got the greatest view of me literally, and you have a pretty good view of our interactions, but it's what you'd like to see. So if you tell me that that's what you'd like to see, then I'll bring that to you. I'm not gonna say I'm not going to do it. I'll do it as I'm directed.
Councilor Kazi.
In the past, when you conducted 360s, have they been given the option to submit them or not?
Yes. Well, yeah, they were encouraged to do them. They were told why we were requesting it. They were told it would be anonymous. So, they had every reason to do it or to not do it. And I think we got less than half of the employees chose to do it. But, department heads work directly for me, so I can give them direction.
But would you give them the same option to?
No, not if my direction from the city council is to have the department heads do a 360 on me.
Do you think that would be inappropriate?
No, and I think you'll get responses from each of the department heads. So, some will spend more time on it than others.
They're busy.
Well, they're busy, yeah. But not too busy to tell you how I'm doing, so it's fine.
And to be clear, if the council's not comfortable mandating it, that's not a hill I'm going to die on. I just was.
Can we repeat the motion that's on the table?
Move to add the department heads to the 360 evaluation to the city manager's evaluation. I think that's what you said.
I think I meant to not. I think I meant to not say. I think I started saying 360, and then I meant to retract that and say the city manager's evaluation. So move to add the department heads to the city manager's evaluation for 2024. Yeah.
And personally, I don't know if I'm 100% comfortable with mandating it. I think there's a lot to be said by giving freedom of choice and allowing agency to have some rule, unless it's, I realize that Chris is their boss and he can mandate what as their boss, he can request in a strong manner that it is required. I'm just not sure that that's what I want to do as a council person, is to say that relationship, that role of you are now mandated because I say you are mandated and Chris is going to make sure that you do this. I'm not 100% on board there. So I think there's some value to having it be an option and requested. But that's just my own personal preference.
Any other comments? Councilor Andrade.
I'll just note that I think that the motion is kind of ambiguous about whether it says mandate, so I think I'm fine with it however it is in whatever way the council wants to do it. Like, I don't, again, it's not my hill to die on either.
Yeah.
I think it is heavy-handed of the council to mandate it. If Chris, and in his management style, has given people the option in the past, you know, I'm sure it's something that where it's done, it probably varies with every organization, and I don't believe we should.
Chris?
Just having heard the motion read back, I think the language is incorrect. I don't think the council wants to be in a position where you're requesting or mandate or anything to staff outside of me, so I'd recommend at this point to deny this motion, and if that's the desire of the council to hear from the department heads, that you would make a move to direct me to receive input from the department heads, but not to request information from them directly. I think that's city council's directing staff.
And this is an
inappropriate.
Of providing education to the city council, the council manager form.
Can't do anymore.
Working in collaboration. Okay, then I'll retract my motion and I'll make a new motion to instruct the city manager to request evaluations from department heads as part of the 2024 evaluation of the city manager.
Second.
So we have a motion on the table by Councilor McMorrin, seconded by Councilor Andrade. Any further comments, questions, discussion?
Are you comfortable with that being the same evaluation that you're doing?
I don't
know. The new.
I guess I was thinking it'd be just like a quicker one. So I mean, I wouldn't be opposed to this. I just feel like this would not be actually that helpful from them. I just don't think we'll show you. Sure. I mean, I was thinking it can just be like, you know, how would you rate the city manager's communication with you? How would you rate the city manager's like evaluation of your role? How would you rate
the old one?
I mean, I think it could literally, just like 3 questions. I think I'd be fine. It doesn't need to be just more like I guess I'm just looking for like big green flags, big red flags, anything like that.
Yeah, if you want to leave that to my purview, I can put something together and get it out to them.
Okay.
Let's vote.
Get ready to. Here. All in favor of passing the motion as stated, please raise your hand and say aye. Aye. Unanimously?
Right.
Yep.
Is Chelsea gonna be out?
She'll be in next week.
I was just thinking maybe for the sake of like trying, like if she wrote the questions, that might.
Takes all the fun out of it.
Well, I know. But I'm not gonna tell you how to do your job, but just, yeah.
No, you get to tell me how to do it.
Well, that's true. I'm not gonna tell Chelsea how to do her job.
That's right.
That's true, yes.
We want to get a motion to approve the survey as presented in Mr. Andrade's write-up.
Sure. We have a motion to approve the city manager's evaluation as amended by Councilor Andrade.
Actually, I'd like to recommend a change to the recommendation. I would just like to make it a little more general. And sort of provides council information on the council form of government and the associated structure.
Okay. We have a motion to amend. Did we already have a motion on the table? Did we already have a motion on the table?
I'm sorry, what?
Did we already have a motion on the table?
No.
Okay.
You asked for motion and she made a motion to amend the survey.
Okay. We have a second.
Second.
We have a motion to amend by Councilor Causey and seconded by Councilor Crocker. Did you get the motion?
No.
Okay.
I can read it. I got it.
So, Councilor Causey, could you just repeat the motion?
No, I did not, I apologize. I'm getting snarky. 4.3.
4.3, the changed language in 4.3. The last sentence. It reads, provides council with the information instead of education, on the council manager, form of government, and the associated roles.
Using the word education to information and not using the suggested sentence as proposed by Councilor Andrade.
Correct, but it was, I changed it from the division of roles to
Structure of roles is what you said.
What?
Structure of roles.
structure of roles.
I heard you say associated. Sorry, can you repeat that last?
And the associated roles.
You might just say the associated structure. That would be a simpler. The associated structure.
Ruth Post, she just amended the motion.
And this is why Ruth is retiring.
Okay, would you read it one more time, what you want to say, or do you want to do that?
I've got it. So provide council with information on the council manager form of government and the associated
Structure. Yes.
Rules?
No, just associated structure, period.
Okay. And that was by, Councilor Causey and Councilor Rucker?
Yeah.
Thank you for bearing with me.
No problem. Any further comments, questions, or discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please raise your hand and say aye. Aye, motion carried unanimously. Now that we amended that, now you want to make a motion to approve?
I move that we approve the city manager's evaluation form as amended.
Okay, we have a second.
Question.
So we have a motion made by Councilor Causey, seconded by Councilor Crocker. Councilor Andrade, you have a question?
You said as amended, but are you talking about only the amendment that you made or the other amendments as well, minus the original 4.3 that I had suggested?
I'm talking about what you just said. All amendments, including the changes to 4.3.
Why don't you just insert into your motion as proposed and amended?
Did I say that?
You said as amended, but if you say as proposed and amended, it covers both Councilor Andrade's and your amendment.
Okay, let's go with that.
Okay.
As proposed and amended.
Councilor Crocker, you okay with that?
Yep.
Okay. Any further comments, questions? All in favor, please raise your hand, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Okay, excellent, moving forward. 9:08. And so now, we have on the agenda, a discussion about the Dirt Road Brewery OLCC permit application.
Chief, quick on this. No, Chief. Dirt Road's expanding to the building next door they purchased and they've remodeled. With that expansion of the business, they have to go through OLCC's approval. Chief Gursky's took a look at this. He's got no problems with it. So the city council can either recommend the license be granted, recommend it be denied, or make no recommendation at all. Then I go to the paperwork and go back to OLCC and the recommendation from staff is to approve.
Councilor Causey.
I recommend that the OLCC license application for Dirt Road Brewing be approved.
Excellent, we have a motion. Seconded by Councilor Crocker. Any further discussion, comments, questions?
Just make a note that Dirt Road was the recipient of one of the city's $10,000 facade grant improvement grants this last year, and they were the first to kind of complete their project. In fact, we're completing and finishing just past approval, so they've already submitted their receipts, and so they'll be getting the first reimbursement out of that program. So that's $10,000 from the city to help with that facade improvement, which looks spectacular, looks great. So,
Yeah, does look good.
It does.
You need that extra space.
All in favor, please raise your hand, say aye. Aye. Motion carried unanimously. Congratulations, Chuck. So, next on the agenda is resolution 24-20, adopting procedures for public meeting grievances. The reporter, you're gonna walk us through this?
Sure.
Don't lean on it, we'll speak.
The memorandum was pretty self-explanatory that, House Bill 2805 created these mandatory, prerequisites for, the manner of now submitting a complaint about a public meeting law. The Oregon Government Ethics Commission is now responsible for governing those, complaints. But, they just finished earlier this month setting the new administrative rules. And most cities are adopting a process or a policy that basically takes the administrative rule and localizes it as to who's responsible for what. And that's what this policy does. This is essentially the state administrative rules for accepting and dealing with a complaint. But what we've done is we've identified in here what the city manager's role is, what the city recorder's role is, so that there's no confusion by someone who wants to submit a complaint as to who they give it to, who's responsible for processing it, and those details. We set this up as a policy, and I did have the city attorney's office review it, made some recommendations. And that's it.
Thank you. So we have a suggested motion, Councilor Cosmo.
I move that the council adopt resolution 24-20 as presented.
I'll second that.
We have a motion made by Councilor Causey, seconded by Councilor Nielsen. Any further comments, questions? Councilor McMorrin.
I'm just curious how this interfaces, if it does, with the press piece of executive sessions, where if the press feels like public meetings law has been, or like executive session law has been violated in executive session, they can report on it. Would they also then follow this, or is that two totally separate things?
They would be required to. They can't submit a complaint directly to OGEC.
Right.
They have to follow this process, or OGEC will not look at it.
Okay, and then the reporting on what was said in the executive session, that has remained unchanged.
No,
Okay. No, meaning.
no, that nothing has changed.
Okay, cool, thank you.
Any further comments, questions, discussion? All in favor, please raise your hand, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. I did that with a little bit of a inflection, you almost. Okay, excellent. Next, we have the manager report. Chris?
So every single bullet point on here is super exciting and important. However, because of the hour, I'm just gonna hit some of the highlights here. And again, I assume they'll be able to take the time to go through it. Got asked last month about Hydra and the lot on 20th Street, was able to reconnect. They're excited on the project moving forward. So we're just waiting for a more formal proposal to come from Hydra on what they'd be providing, what the city would be requested to provide. And so that was a great reconnection there. I was like everybody else's stuff a little bit better than mine. Human resources is exciting. We've hired 3 new employees. Stevens joined as a police recruit. John Weber and Leland Montesi have joined Public Works, which is great. I'm excited to bring on great new employees. I always hate to lose employees, but I say something. We always end up hiring better than what we lost, I feel like, especially in police and public works. Up until recent. So I'm saving it for here. Until this point.
For dropped.
It did not drop. Moving forward. No, we've got great new employees coming on. They're happy to be here in town. I will make a note on the back on police. A couple of standouts. Sergeant Bowers received his DRE, drug recognition expert certification. This isn't like going and take the test. This is hours and hours of training, and then that certification follows after immense training. He is the reason it's important. Anytime you get a stop for a potential DUI. If it's alcohol, it's one thing. If you suspect it's drugs, you have to have a drug recognition expert be able to come and do that stop and do the test. We don't just do the sobriety test for alcohol, completely different. So if you don't have one of those in town, then we sit and we wait for the county or city of Corvallis, or we release, or we, site release or figure out some other way, or we sit there and hang on to them for an hour plus to find out if they need to be taken off the road or not. So having our local is terrific. Really proud of Sergeant Bowers for taking that step forward. And then also want to highlight Chief Gursky took the time to go through the LELI, Law Enforcement Executive Leadership Institute. Again, this was multiple days of pretty intense training. This training's put on by retired police chiefs, current police chiefs, law enforcement at the state level, and they drill these guys full of information for like 3-4 days solid. It's pretty extensive, the amount of training that they get, and it's targeted for new and future chiefs of police. So very targeted, very state of Oregon specific, really good in-depth training, and Chief came in with a bunch of good new information, which was nice. Good to see he's got that training that will help him out. And again, recruit Stephen Arts joins in. He'll start in the Police Academy November 4th. Public works side, electronic meters are up and going, which is exciting. If your water is running for more than 24 hours at a time, we'll know that day rather than a month later. So we'll be able to notify residents of running water issues, which is really helpful. Also saves a lot of staff time of driving around in circles trying to collect meters with the wireless. Now the antennas are just going to pick that up. We might send them out for a meter or two that's malfunctioning, but it's going to dramatically reduce the amount of time it takes to do that. But I think the instant response is what's going to be really a big saver for our residents and our business owners. Right now, if you get a leak and you don't find out till 20 or half of it, but half of a water bill at $600, $800 is still a lot of money. So sometimes more. That's probably on the low end. Sometimes it's thousands of dollars, and half of it with you. So this will be very, very good when those leaks come up.
Are they going to detect my leaky faucet?
They might. You might get a phone call. The reservoir panels are going up. If you haven't been on 9th Street recently, go check it out. There's a mammoth of a water reservoir being built. It's pretty impressive, the engineering that goes into those feats. So take a look, and then as you're driving, if you drive out of town tonight, you got to hit the Safeway or something before Boulevard Apartments, because it's lit up like noonday. It's bright, got lots of reflective tape on it, looks really good. So appreciate the efforts to get that cleaned up. Literally cleaned up and reflective, so motorists can see it a little bit more clearly at night. So just in time for winter. Proud of getting that project done. Happy to answer any other questions of anything on there or anything else going on in the city.
We're so proud of our new generator. Dated, but I don't think it's fully operational, is it?
Not yet, we're getting close.
Yeah.
Waiting on a little more electric configuration.
And as some of the residents have, and what's the fuel capacity and how long will it run?
Details. We have diesel storage, and we'll be fine. I don't know what the total number of hours on that thing will be, but definitely long enough to get us through the little 24-hour or 3-hour blurbs that we have shut down the entire neighborhood for on water in years past.
Thank you for your continued good work.
Yep, good project.
I thought I read somewhere that 16th Street in the Mill Pond area was gonna be repaired shortly, but I can't find it in here again. But can you?
I got an email today saying by the end of the month, but I haven't been able to confirm a date, so I didn't wanna say more than what I knew, but the end of the month is what I was told today in an email. It's October, so.
Councilor Crocker.
I am the liaison for the Philomath Community Foundation. They're an amazing group of people, professional, good works, and some of the same grants and same people we've just given, they have also given. They are very involved in our community and scholarship for the seniors. This is their yearly, what's it called?
Report today.
Report. This picture is beautiful. It's the inside mural of the Philomath Elementary School that Max Tivity has gone at the Rod Harvey comments. And so that's what I have to say, but you each have one.
Excellent, thank you. Councilor Andrade.
I wanted to hear from the city manager about the psilocybin town hall and ordinance. We're coming up towards the end of the year and just a little concerned about, I would think we would need more than one meeting to discuss an ordinance, like potential edits and such.
Yeah, I think the Cerny attorney's got that on for I think we're gonna present it for the first time on the 24th or 28th. So we're gonna present it for the first time on the 28th, first reading, and then reconsider again in November. So that's on her document agenda at the end of the month.
And
We talked about doing a town hall after the election, and I don't have a date for that set yet, so we're probably looking at second week of December sometime,
well, we said November.
or November.
Yeah, we said
That's what we said and we put it out.
After the election in November.
Do you think we can get a date by the next meeting?
Sure.
and kind of information about, like, I know that we had listed some info, careful of not biasing, for or against in any way. So I don't know, are you supposed to come back with that information to us, or?
I was planning to, I was just gonna follow the direction I was given.
I just thought there was one more, or review of things.
We had talked about maybe having people, then his information will happen. And so we said we mostly wanted to hear from the community and have them
Okay,
voice their thoughts.
thank you, I couldn't remember, I appreciate that.
I was just gonna share from my liaison roles with the chamber and fire district. You've seen this already, but the chamber's moving the Christmas tree lighting to the Friday before Thanksgiving in a very controversial move. No, and I know, and I'll keep my personal feelings personal,
Yes.
but the reasoning they gave is just that in their experience doing it between Thanksgiving and Christmas, there's a lot more families out of town. And so I think they are trying to increase attendance by having it before Thanksgiving. So I think they're going to try that this year and see how it goes. So that'll be the Friday before, which I don't know, that's like the 22nd or something. Let me double check. Yeah, November 22nd.
Were they citing that attendance has been down the last couple?
Oh, we should roll it.
I'm just passing along what I,
Weather's the biggest factor.
so
Fix that.
if you have feelings on that, director at PhilomathChamber.org, maybe? Anyway.
Wife said about celebrating anything with the holidays.
I agree. If I hear it, my pet peeve is going to like Starbucks and they have the peppermint stuff, and I'm like, it's still pumpkin season. But anyway.
I hope you point that out.
Anyway, and then the fire district had their open house on Saturday, which I think was, speaking of attendance, very well attended. And the police department was represented there, Public Works was represented there, so a great collaboration. And then
Planning was there as well. Michael actually
planning was there.
some future zoning.
Yes, yeah. So I think a lot of good outreach, and I know Michael was telling me that he got more farmers market, so I think it was beneficial. And then I gave Chris a heads up that there's going to be some back and forth, but I think with the fire district on fire hydrant testing and who's responsible for that. So I know the exciting topics in municipal government. So yes, there we are.
Saturday, I did go to the Jags tryout, and I brought my shoes. Then I got sidetracked, and it was a bad idea. But I attended, and they had about 12, but I wasn't there doing that. And then he told me, Marion told me, I actually left right before the kids all showed up. I wish I would have stayed, but I had to go. But he said he had 25 people registered, and they were still registered for the youth camp on Saturday, and I didn't get a report on Sunday, but it's kind of cool. Anyway. It was fun.
One last thing was just, we also had our local government coffee Saturday morning. Not a ton of attendance, and in classic fashion, we did finally get some folks showing up. That what you will.
I read into it plenty.
But it was a good discussion with the school board members, and the superintendent was there, and the county commissioner was there. And then just to flag, we'll be returning to our usual schedule the third Saturday of the month. From now through May for the counselor interested in that. The only change is we had been doing it 9 to 10:30. I think I'm going to shift it 9:30 to 11, just because I think the multiple times I've done it, hardly anyone shows up before 9:30 anyway. It seems like the attendance just kind of, and then there's also sometimes like the county legislative breakfasts and stuff on those Saturday mornings too. So trying to avoid conflict with that, flag that for everyone.
Anything else?
Just keep an eye on the calendar, a lot of fun stuff coming up. We've got Ruth's retirement celebration. We've got, as I mentioned earlier, the ribbon cutting for the new park, Veterans Day Memorial Park. There's some fun stuff coming up, so keep an eye on the calendar.
Greenscapes.
Yeah.
Greenscapes ribbon cutting.
Yeah, thank you. And, yeah, so lots of good stuff. Good opportunity to get out and thank a bunch of contractors for all the work they've been doing in the city over the last year or two plus. So
And the Veterans, Park is unchanged.
I don't know, we've decided if we're gonna do it the Saturday or the Monday yet. I think there's one final opinions both ways. We're not gonna make anybody happy which way we go. So it'll either be the Saturday the 9th or Monday the 11th. So yeah, look for that soon. I've got one other part I gotta.
That's it.
I had stickies with the notes somewhere here.
Wait, there's a sticky. Either yellow, blue, or
Oh,
pink.
there it is.
There you go.
Trunk or treat.
No, I'm out of town.
Who is available and would like to staff the trunk or treat booth for the city of Philomath City Council? Public Works is gonna have a booth, police is gonna have a booth.
It was fun last year, but.
It's really fun.
It is, gee, I don't have the time right in front of me.
Halloween.
It's on Halloween Day. I think it's 3 to 5 or 3 to 5:30, something like that.
Councilor Moran's on. Councilor Crosby.
Okay,
Beaver.
just show up with, I'll have the canopy, I'll have the candy, so we've got a sign, city council. So yeah, just show up, we'll have the candy and everything ready to go. That'll be fun, thank you.
Thank you all for with that. We'll adjourn. Have a good night. Oh, 9:30.
But it's hot.